video for absent friends. We have several we know of today. So we're now recording. Welcome to the May 11th, 2024 meeting of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. We are discussing the items in the proposed 2024 sales tax list that's come from City Hall, and we're focused upon what's in it, what more information we need about it, there's a bunch, and what items are missing from it. First of all, we like to do introductions around the table. I'm Kathy Wells, I'm president. I come from the Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Ron Muse, founder and of Forest Hills, not far from here.
I'm Mary Henthorne, Ward 4.
Rip Weaver with Downtown Little Rock.
Denise Leeson, Central High Neighborhood.
Anita Danielle Claiborne with Hadaway Neighborhood. Lawrence Jordan, Ward 4.
Sharon Baker, Ward 4.
John Hedrick, Ward 1, and Hadaway in Downtown Neighborhoods.
Carol Miles, Jericho Way, Daviesville Centers in Ward 1.
My name is Virgil Miller. I'm on the Little Rock City Board of Directors. I represent Ward 1.
Welcome all today. Thank you for coming. This group has, since 1990, when we were founded, collectively tried to address particularly issues that trouble neighborhoods. And we first go to City Hall for our help and resolution. But we also do not neglect all the other levels of government. And we're one of the few that will insist upon asking everyone to act collectively, since our tax dollar goes to the city, the county, the school district, the state, and the federal government, and they should work together more than they do. Broad picture there. We've got two handouts today. One is the city's list of 46 lines of spending proposed. As I understand it, the mayor expects to have a complete list of 7 ward meetings by the end of the month of May. He then hopes to call an election for the November general election ballot for this proposal. It has an origin in last year's proposal that, in fact, was pulled down. They, therefore, are noting some things are ongoing that were brought forward, basic sort of stuff, and there are some items that are labeled new. And so we need to pay attention to that. Once again, looking in overall terms, one of the things that we haven't on the list that they do have in a revised form is indoor and outdoor sports facilities complexes. They have taken that out of the central War Memorial Park location. Too many people didn't like that. In fact, that's proposed for a rather interesting collection of features. I got word on this from the parks employee yesterday. They're looking to put in a tree house. They're going to upgrade the creek. They want an area with a grassy lawn and a performance stage under an arch. They're going to have some dirt lots that you can do some casual ball games and just hanging around. And then they're going to put in a bunch of more trails, is the idea for War Memorial Park. The complexes have been put into 2 places in this proposal. One would be that by the Clinton Library. We still don't have an address on the lot, but it would be 10 courts. These are apparently the height that you can change the boundary and play different ball games. The outdoor sports complex is at some location in West Little Rock. They've got 2 possible locations. There was an Arkansas Times article that I had sent out to everybody on my list, but we don't know where that would be. But once again, apparently you can change your configuration. And I was asking about tournament attractions, especially in view of the fact that we just saw the Cabot facility in the news as a major ribbon cutting. And I would ask Director Miller of the City Board rather directly, are we trying to do a sports complex that's going to keep up with the Joneses which is to say the Cabot facility?
What we would like to do, certainly subject to, you know, what our residents want to do and approve, is to have a sports complex. Let's take a look at this in a big picture. Sports complexes bring in a lot of families. They bring in a lot of economic development. My daughters are grown now, thank goodness. But when they were younger, they played softball. And we went around to different sports tournaments. And you went to those places that had a sports complex, several softball fields. Families go there at 8 o'clock, they stay all day. They take a break at lunchtime. What do they do at lunchtime? They go around and go to different restaurants in the city where that sports complex is located. They spend a lot of money. Some families come in and they spend the night where the tournaments are being held. We have been looking around, certainly here in Central Arkansas, and those sports complexes aren't located here. We miss out on all those tournaments. And so we think it would be certainly an economic boost if we had something that, in your words, maybe could compete with the other cities in Central Arkansas. I think it's a good thing. I think it's worthy to be considered. Certainly the citizens will have the final say on that. But when you think about it and you think about the economic impact, and I don't know if we've done any impact studies, that would probably be something that we could do about how much economic impact a sports complex would have for your city.
Well, there's been one, and the question is, are they getting more recently?
When you say there's been one,
Yes, sir. That came out in the 2023 discussion, and in fact, I circulated that to the group at that time. And it was interesting because they gave the famous War Memorial site of controversy in that year number 3 position, and number 1 position was Western Hills.
well,
So the question is, are you going to listen to your consultants, or are you going to go with some other notion by the amateurs, if I may be so bold as to suggest?
I believe that is something that we need to get impact and feedback on. Let me say this first off. I should have said this from the beginning. Thank you for having me, number 1. Number 2, I want to encourage all of you, just not Ward 1 residents, but everyone who would like to attend a discussion that's going to happen on May the 16th at 6 o'clock at the Dunbar Community Center, where we will be discussing the proposed sales tax. As Kathy talked about, we're having discussions in all 7 wards. This would be specifically the discussion that's going to happen for Ward 1, but anybody from any part of the city can come. I think it would be great if you could attend more than one, so you can get a perspective about what's being said in different wards. I think that's important. So I want to encourage you, number 1, to come to that hearing. Again, 6 o'clock, May 16th at Dunbar Community Center. Please come. Let's get your feedback. This sales tax project list is something that is not written in stone, can be tweaked somewhat. We need to get that. I'm a big believer in giving the public something to look at. It's easier to take a look and see what's being proposed and then get your feedback on that. Again, as you recall, we had a lot of feedback. Last year we had a lot of meetings, and because of what was said, the mayor decided that it wasn't the right time to take a look at the sales tax based on everything that we were hearing. What we heard has been somewhat put into this sales tax project list. this is a result of a lot of things that we've heard. Now you may say, well, some of this needs to be talked about further. That's what we're going to do at the meetings, to talk about that. But it's a lot easier to have something in front of you, to be able to talk about it, than to have nothing and then try to get everything and then try to put a list together. This list is out now. It's online. You have a hard copy of it. Bring it with you to the sales tax discussions. Talk about it. Let's get your feedback about it. I don't think it's something that it's a take it or leave it at this point. Certainly these things can be tweaked. We want to get your feedback. I certainly want to get your feedback because, as you know, if we're going to have the sales tax ballot proposal go before you in November, it has to get approved at the board level first. The board of directors has to approve this in order for it to be, again, presented to the public. So you're the public. Give us feedback on it. Tell us what you like about it, what you don't like about it, maybe some things that need to be tweaked about it, so that we can, again, maybe make adjustments for it to try to give every area of the city and certainly citizens address their concerns. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know if anything's going to be perfect, quite frankly. Some people, number one, just don't like taxes, period. And again, you know we're going to have some of that. They just don't like taxes. But we know that in order for our city to grow and for our city to compete with cities in central Arkansas and beyond, we need to have some things. We need to have things like a sports complex. We believe we need to address our issues with affordable housing. Again, you can see the things of public safety, homelessness, affordable housing, parks, public infrastructure, port technology, downtown investments. All these things are for you to give us feedback on, and that's what we want. That's what we're looking for, Kathy, feedback.
I appreciate that. But when you're talking about the sports activities, what about a joint user agreement with the school district? You know, going after sales tax revenue because we bring in some tournament play seems to me not so nearly as valid and important a policy as making sure that all the children of the city of Little Rock have decent athletic facilities. And the Seattle-Washington model that we've been exploring for months is a very excellent success story and has been going on for 2 decades plus. So have you had a chance to look at the materials that we provided? What's your reaction to trying to do a joint user agreement with the schools?
I have looked at that information. I've certainly had personal experience growing up as a youth in Berkeley, California. We had an after-school program at our elementary school. We went to that. It served as a community center. And so I can tell you it saved me from the streets. When I got out of school, I could go to the after-school program that was put on by the school district. You could check out baseballs, basketballs, dodgeballs. You could play tetherball. I don't know if they do that now. It gave us something to do. And so we did work with the school district. What we have here with the Little Rock School District is something obviously we can explore. They have their own issues. Certainly things like that have to be discussed at the district level and with their board, because as you know, if schools are open up and playgrounds are open up, and I loved the idea when I was young to be able to go to and use the playgrounds that were already existed at the schools to have the play. But who's going to man those? Who's going to have the liability for them? How much is that going to cost? Those things ultimately have to be decided upon by the Little Rock School District, and certainly the city. I think we've had some discussions about that. Those discussions are taking place, but again, there are issues that are questions that are being brought up, I know, by the school district as they struggle, or I say struggle, they look at the challenges of their own budget. And if you are keeping up with what they're doing, they're having to make some tough decisions as it relates to their budget.
But our joint user proposal made the cut. They announced their slim list of the things that they were pursuing out of all of the public suggestions that they threw open to receive. And we were so excited because that idea was welcomed by officials. He's absent today, but Michael Bynum has been working on this with coalition folks. And the notion right now is that we try for an athletic field, practice field for Parkview High School, which has no such right now, but has an award-winning team, tournament play-winning team. So perhaps we might engage your help with some of that.
I'm open to that and certainly open
Okay,
to
we will talk further.
talking about that. And as a matter of fact, we'll be going to a workshop with the Little Rock School District that's going to be taking place at Southwest High School here in a couple of weeks, of sort of a mentoring program that they need. So these, I guess, partnerships, if you may, and proposed partnerships with the Little Rock School District are things that we're talking about. I'm not opposed to a joint user agreement, but as you know, it's always in the details, and it always boils down to money and the liability. But
I appreciate that.
I'm certainly open to that.
I appreciate that. Yes, please.
How does this proposal for the sports complex next to Clinton Presidential Library square with the plan that Sasaki just came out for downtown, to revitalize downtown? Was that in that Sasaki plan?
You bring up a good point. As you know, the downtown master plan was presented to the public last Wednesday. It's also online. It's 100+ pages that you can take a look at.
It's 200.
Yeah, it's
I
bigger.
was getting ready to say, I think it's about 218, but I just threw that out there. I've looked at the Cliff Notes version of it. I have not read the whole thing at this point, but I can tell you the major takeaway is downtown density and housing. Now, as it relates to how it squares up with this, I have not laid this out yet. I think it's extremely important that we take a look at the final downtown master plan after it's been out here for 30 days, because we don't know how much it's going to cost at this point. So that's important. I think it's, some people have questioned and said, why don't we finalize the downtown master plan and see how it syncs up with what we're proposing on the sales tax? I don't think that's a bad idea. I think we have paid over $700,000 for the downtown master plan. That's good money. That's your money that we paid to get this.
I think it would make the most sense to bring it all together.
Well, I would also just inject that putting line items here that are clearly derivative of the master plan draft, which has already been circulated. They've already got the official status from City Hall. They're going out to ask for public comments on this. So on the one hand, we have this firm list. Now we're obviously, as he says, not in stone. But what's on here includes some things from a draft plan, which is still in a 30-day comment period, after which it goes for final adoption to the city board. Now that suggests to me that City Hall is totally disrespectful of comments and the process. They're just saying, oh, we know we're going to get this, or we know we want to pull out of the big page the things that we want to go forward with. And that strikes me as poor governance. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
how is the city going to square the Sasaki plan with the proposed sales tax plan? As Kathy said, the reason it was formed in the first place is that all parts of government should work together. And you all have spent $700,000 plus to create the plan, and yet it seems, as many things are, you're working in a vacuum on the sales tax
Silos.
and not
Silos.
considering what has been proposed by Sasaki and has gotten public comment at least on three different occasions, at least. How are you squaring that?
My reaction to what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that I agree with you. I agree with you. I think we do need to see what the final downtown master plan is going to be, and even more importantly, is how much it's going to cost to implement all or parts of it. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I believe that we do need to have that final master plan. We do need to have some idea of how much it's going to cost, so that then we can sync up some things that are being proposed with this sales tax with what is going to be finally adopted by the downtown master plan. Because at the end of the day, we do know that it's going to cost some money to implement.
So are all these things on your sales tax proposal? They're going to cost too.
Well, and the Sasaki plan at least has the community behind it with the feedback, the surveys, the 3 meetings. I went to almost all of them, filled out all of the surveys. So to me, that is the direction where we should go to spend our money.
I hear it, and I'm making a note of that. I believe the rest of the board members need to hear that. I don't know.
When can I go get before them?
Every first and third Tuesday of the month, there's citizen communications that you could have 3 minutes to say whatever's on your mind. And I think it would be a powerful statement if people came together, organized, and shared your thoughts with the city as far as with the downtown master plan, and ask the question that you are proposing here to me to get my reaction about it. We got this downtown master plan. It cost us, all of you, $700,000+ to do it. How does it sync up with what you're proposing on the sales tax? We spent a lot of time. We had a lot of citizen meetings. Please don't dismiss what we have as citizens giving input on the downtown master plan, because, again, what you're talking about, getting feedback at the sales tax meetings, we've already had feedback about the downtown master plan from the public. And so the public, in my opinion, has been pretty clear about some of the things they want. And once that thing is, and I'm talking about the downtown master plan, is finalized, then we need to take that into consideration, because people spend a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of time reading it, a lot of time participating in meetings, a lot of time giving feedback. And so, as stewards of public trust, we want you to be responsive to what you heard. And so I think that's extremely important. I agree with you. I do not disagree with what I'm hearing here. I will certainly be strong about that position.
Well, I appreciate that. But a comment to go along with what Kathy had said, the sales tax items that are listed here, it might be helpful if you put an asterisk or something saying this is already part of the downtown plan. This is part of it, and which ones are not part of it, so that we can look at it and say, well, we are all for the downtown plan, but there are a whole bunch of items on here that are not included in that we may not be willing to fund.
Well, I had comments on the accessibility of this list and the visual nature. This is text heavy, a lot of numbers. I can look at it. Most of us in this room can't. My brother would not be able to understand this list. And there's many residents in our city that wouldn't. So I hope at these neighborhood meetings board meetings that you all have a presentation that maybe is not just this,
Fill in,
you know, and maybe.
It looks like this. I sent you this PowerPoint.
Okay, I have.
But it's, I think, I would point out there's a lot of sizzle and not much substance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was gonna say, you know, the line item homelessness, what is 20 million, what are we doing? What bullet, you know, items are we doing under that to alleviate that in our city, not just a buzzword, so.
That's
I would
one
be-
thing I got some information on, if you
Okay.
get through my text-heavy clarification
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
That one I got some information on. But before we leave the master plan stuff, let me call your attentions down to line 38, the River Market Hall renovation, a new $3 million renovation. That strikes in contrast with the big reveal of the master plan, which is we need to bring people down there. We need to be getting population back. I might also ask, that is an advertising and promotion tourism development that has their own income, and why is this a general revenue proposal in any event? Much less, why would that be a priority over something that would bring population down to the river market? Would be one point to ask that I call your attention to. And then you drop down to line 41, which is 2 parking decks for $10 million. That is, by the way, a mistake. They call it new, but I'm holding the 2023 list, which has the same parking decks for $10 million. And one of the big features was, we did a study, we've got too many parking places. We need to, in fact, build population, building high-rises on some of these lots and so forth and so on. So
You're not gonna have
it
both.
doesn't
You're not gonna
sound
have-
like they need parking decks.
I was gonna say,
Why
you're not
are they
gonna have-
doing this?
You won't have both. You can't have people density and car density, so it's gonna have to be a trade. If we want more people down there, we're gonna have to get rid of these parking spaces and decks.
Well,
and
that's
lots.
exactly what their big study says
Right.
when you go into that stuff. And I can respect the fact that if we're gonna build over a bunch of surface lots, there may be some remaining need for a few places for cars to go, although transit is missing from this plan. And if you get a bunch of population downtown, it sounds like you need to add on a, call it a circulating shuttle, if you will, to move them all from pillar to post. So there may be a justification for, we still need some parking, but we'll stick it in a deck. But we need to find out about that, and we haven't yet. Please consider that a request to my director, Virgil Miller. What is going on with the parking decks, which they're bringing forward to the new year?
Well, and they emphasized Walker Construction, which was in the plan, who does parking decks in the master plan. If you look at that, and they have all kinds of different kinds of construction, and one of them is sustainable parking decks, which there's no mention here. There's an item on sustainability, but it doesn't say what sustainability, the $1 million is going to go.
It does
for.
not. That was not something I'd had a chance to research. Please feel invited to research it and send us a memo on what people tell you about it. I freely admit I've got some pending replies out there, but I don't have it all responded to yet.
well, let me say that I think points that you're making are certainly valid. When you look at line item 37, 38, and 39, we need to see how that sync up with the downtown master plan. I mean, we need to take a look at that. That's just, you can say it makes common sense to take a look at that. And so these items, 37, 38, 39, those should be synced up some kind of way with what's the downtown master plan say about those items. What does it say about parking decks? How does it address that, like what you've been saying already? How does that downtown master plan line up with what's being proposed here? It just makes all the sense in the world to really get that downtown master plan finalized to see how it addresses some of these. And what's on here that the downtown master plan certainly has embraced, that you as citizens have gone to all the meetings and given input on. And then just the opposite also. What's in the downtown master plan that maybe is not listed on this? And why isn't it listed on this? What's the explanation for some of that? So I totally agree that we need to get the downtown master plan finalized, overlay it on this, and see what's on that, what syncs up with that, what's not on that, and what are we going to do to address that?
Well, Kathy, sorry, but didn't the Tourism Bureau and Little Rock just put out a master plan as well for tourism?
Tourism.
So if you're gonna overlay and pay for all these plans, then put them together and
Take them all into account for this list.
overlay each of those plans to see what is already going to be proposed. So that we and the public don't look at 3 different plans and get totally confused, like which plan had what in them. Let's see the big plan, all of your little plans that you have for Little Rock that you pay fortunes to develop. Let's put them all together and let's see them at one time.
Which in fact suggests we may be premature in trying to do a sales tax in November of 2024 because, yes, we have just about the master plan for downtown. Yes, we do have a zoo plan, a parks plan. Yes, we do have this A&P plan. But what we still do not have completed is a master new street and transportation plan. And just yesterday, I got notice of a new round of hearings about a stormwater revision of retention and the manual. Now, one thing I think I'm not alone in foreseeing is we're going to have heavier storms and worse storms and more pressure on retention ponds across the city in the future. I've already gone to a meeting and they have accepted my comment that we need to make sure we build them stronger and higher. And then I had the happy thought, brag on myself who should not, they need to be spending some money sending these professionals back around to all the existing detention ponds across this city, some of which are a generation old, to make sure that they are going to be strengthened and able to handle these toad strangling record rains that we're going to be getting. Now, that is not going to be free. I don't have a clue what that's going to cost. But I don't think we need to be doing a 10-year sales tax collection of items that does not include that, any more than it doesn't have anything with transit, any more than it has nothing to do with food deserts. Yes, we're going to have a portable circulating bus, but thanks to Rip Weaver and a memo that just got out before the meeting, you haven't seen it yet, he has thoughtfully pointed out there are other things that we should be doing. So there should be a food desert line item here. And in fact, it does link up with both affordable housing and it does link up with homelessness. But
Just seeing
it hasn't been. And
memo.
can you, yes, just look at that memo, please.
I hadn't read it yet. So.
No, it just got out.
This came out. So.
It just got out.
Sorry, I
It
was
was
in
a
Boston
little
for a week and I
close in
couldn't get it to
timing
you on
there.
time. So
Yeah. One of the things that I'll just call your attention to is there is a reference to a very successful program in Boston, Massachusetts. And we are urged to go find out how they're doing this in Boston because they have really done a job of linking up the people who are hungry to the food that can be made available to them. And I'm assuming they don't do that for 25 cents.
not at all. No, they don't. And they've even gotten to the point where they have a whole office within the mayor's office on food justice, which is food access. I ran a market, farmer's market up there. It's now grown, not necessarily due totally to me, but the new manager is wonderful. But the Office of Food Access at the time, now Justice, they were great at helping us with our SNAP EBT and outreach and communication and building everything around the food system. So, you know, that's light years away from us. But just the things I mentioned in the memo are basics we need to help improve our food access in this city.
And should be in what is essentially a 10-year
Correct.
plan for the city.
Yes.
And it feeds back around to some of the downtown plan stuff. And by the way, just one other little note there. You were asking about how the Clinton Library Courts fit up to the plan. One of the things that is a glorious visual in master plan poster reports is the piece of dirt that was the ramp that's going to be this downtown park has been embellished with all of these wonderful features, all of which are designed to kind of bring families in. If I recall correctly, there's not a single playing court for any kind of official ball game, which makes sense in the size that it is and in the attraction that they're seeking it to be. Not least of which is its boundary buildings are a Museum of Discovery and the Clinton Library and so forth, and they are setting aside grass lawn, if you will, for these to bring their exhibits and their interactive displays out into the outdoor park area. None of that has anything to do with an indoor court, period. So my guess is, if you found it on a map, this is the park and these are the indoor courts somewhere fairly close. But nobody has bothered to answer that question. I'm sorry, took too long to say that, but.
Maybe you need a proposal star for the city that pulls all the plans together, that mesh them all together so citizens can understand what's going on in all these different features that we're paying fortunes for to put up on a shelf, because no one has the time to pull it all together. But create a position that looks at all plans and pulls them together into one plan.
And accessibility should be a thing that they're forefront. That's, I think, legally
And that
required by
pivots in so
institutions.
many directions.
Certainly for the buildings.
Right.
And
Sidewalks.
welcome, we have a new person coming into the room. We are recording this, so we're inviting you to get the handouts and to introduce yourself.
Kevin Howard, Director of Housing Neighborhood Programs for the City of Little Rock.
We had a great discussion, and I welcomed him to come keep it going today. So thank you, Kevin Howard. I think we beat up on master plan enough. I did want to call your attention to my opening sentences in my memo that I heard from Baker Curris about the tax increment finance idea. A big part of what the master plan for downtown had said was a feature of financing. He is basically opposed to it for several reasons. That memo is out there, circulated overnight. It comes down to drawing public school millage for developers and for certain kinds of activity. And he says basically bad policy, wrong direction. I would like to raise a question, and I've asked this to Director Banker Virgil Miller, and he may or may not be ready to opine on it. But I said, one of the great things about the plan was that they listed all of the government-held property all across the riverbank and through the downtown where this plan was surveying everything. And so what if the city of Little Rock offered some developer a lease purchase agreement, and it took to itself these issues of development, as in Kathy Wells wants to develop X property owned by the city of Little Rock. I sign a contract wherein I pay the city $1 a year for 10 years, and I go develop this thing into a mixed-use high-rise. And in year 11, then I pay the full price of the purchase agreed on. But they've had the ability to finance on the equity in the dirt and build the project and get it going and start the profits flowing. So what about that notion?
Well, Kathy has talked to me about it, and certainly I have not at this point had a chance to study the total impact of that. Certainly when ideas are proposed, you don't want to give a knee-jerk reaction. You want to be able to study it and see what it means, how it's going to impact all concerned. So I think it is something we need to take a look at. All these things we need to take a look at. When we look at line 33 on the sales tax project list, port expansion and economic development, you see there's an economic development impact fund. It's new, it's $22 million. You know, we'll probably need to have some specifics about that. How can that be used? What is it going to be used for? I mean, it's just like what you say. We get this line item, but we need some details. I
And
don't
you
believe-
confirmed to me this had nothing to do with the master plan.
I-
This is older, growing up policy.
I don't want to be held to confirming anything totally until I'm
Okay.
a politician. I gotta
Okay.
have some wiggle room. I think we have to take a look at it, quite frankly. I mean, it's tough to say definitively on any of these things until we actually get all the details on it. And I think that's what's important, you guys. I want to be clear about that. Why have the meetings if we don't want to get your input? We want your input. And so I think it is not real good public policy to say, this is the plan, this is what we're going with. And then have these meetings and listen to you and not tweak things based on what we've heard. We need to hear. I mean, that's why we're having these meetings. We want to hear back from you. And so to say definitively about something, I don't want to be held to say I definitively said something like that until I have a chance to study and get all the feedback. I
So
think
maybe
that's-
yes, maybe no, maybe partial, okay.
That sounds like a good political answer.
Okay, okay, all righty. Let me just throw this out, and we'll go on to some of our particulars.
Okay.
One of the great things in the civic history of the community that goes back a few years now was a sales tax proposal that was subtitled 12 Votes for Little Rock. And it gave you the ability, if you just looked at this list, to have them subdivided so that people could all come together over a thing. They could have some real division of opinions about another thing. And it didn't end up that you had to vote it all up or all down. You had the ability to sift through the different categories. And let me suggest to you that if you're hell-bent on going to November with the sales tax, whatever you propose gets subdivided into categories. Let me suggest that as a way forward.
I think I remember that. We had a chance to select certain items. I was certainly, I think that needs to be talked about on May 16th.
You'll hear me say it again. I just wanted to put it in everybody's head, because if you find it good, then you can also speak up in your own comments that way. Yes, ma'am.
Just one thing, I might be a little lost, but a suggested item, maybe if before the voting or however they're gonna do it, if they have a paragraph numbered, like, paragraph 10, I don't know what that is, but on paragraph 10, it'll tell me a little general basis of what that is.
You mean a text?
Yeah, like a written out, you got
On the
this
12 votes for Little Rock, that's what you had. In other words, let's just pretend that these bold categories are a sample ballot, okay? So under public safety, there would be the grand total of $100 million. And then under it, there would be all of these small items,
like a description?
and a narrative sentence, if you will.
Okay.
So it would be boldface, vote yes or no on public safety, $100 million. And then under it, you would be given, call it a parenthesis description.
Okay.
That it would at least give you the titles that are here. There might not be further description, because the ballot does have some restrictions about it.
Okay.
And then, of course, the widespread promotion to turn people out to vote for this would have further description still. Call it a marriage of what you've got here and here. But that's my recollection. I'll grant you it's some years old, but this can all be researched. And in fact, I promise to try and do that. And we can look at the terms and the actual old ballot. It's sitting there in the archives of the Election Commission. And we can find out if we thought that was enough or whether we needed more still. Or if they couldn't legally, which may be the limit, then we could say if the city's going to get a real positive vote, their pamphlet turning you out to vote needs to also describe detail. which is what we're asking for here today, essentially.
Or they could even do something digital and have QR codes and put them all over the sidewalks like Sasaki did everywhere. But, you know, there could be a place where we keep the detail and it's not on the ballot.
I
Or not on a
appreciate
printable.
that. No,
Yeah.
I am so unskilled in technology. Feel free to say all of this good stuff because it passes me by. I am so troubled. One of the things that I wanted to bring forward was the Downtown Neighborhood Association had its meeting and talked about the sales tax last week. And the folks who were at that table were particularly concerned about addressing the issue of the homeless and affordable housing for the folks who were one paycheck away from disaster. And that takes you to line 8, homelessness, and line 9, affordable housing, as well as line 6, the code enforcement number. And if you will notice, I was able to draw from Kevin Howard, thank you again, the fact that the number here will only buy us 5 more positions. By every account, including their own official request, they need 10 more positions. And in fact, you could make an argument for 15 more positions. Keep in mind, half the city of Little Rock lives in rental. Keep in mind, we're supposed to have a 5-year rotation wherein a particular address, single house or complex of 100 or 200 units is supposed to be inspected on a rotation basis every 5 years. We do not begin to achieve that for various reasons. And a lot of it comes down to a majority of the board isn't persuaded to vote the budget. And so that's where we come in. If we think this is what they ought to be doing, they need to hear from us. And I've got the current number here. The current employment positions is 38 positions. And they have 3 vacancies that they're filling. So that's good, but it doesn't get you from here to there. And in the event we got that kind of funding, then you begin to address affordable housing because then you begin to have safe, decent housing. The affordable housing, $10 million is, I'm sorry, really embarrassing drop in the bucket. Once again, my current information is that one affordable house will cost $225,000. And if you try and do complexes, then of course you consume your $10 million that much faster. And we've been having news stories for the past year about the crisis in affordable housing in this city. So that is just not nearly enough. And you tie it back to the homelessness in line 8, the $20 million. I was able to confirm that refers strictly to the new micro-village annual budget for its staffing and operation, plus putting a couple of folks out on the street to meet the street folks where they are and persuade them into social services. That is to say, that is maintenance level. It doesn't get you to what we know from a census. We had 700 unsheltered on the streets. Now, if you take 100 of them into the micro-village, we progress. You take another 100 of those into the new county facility, ribbon cutting later this month, we progress. But that leaves, in policy discussion terms, 500 still sitting on the street, who are moreover ordered out of Kathy Wells's private property because their encampment is now a nuisance, but all they do is they go resettle onto Jan's property. And they sit there for a few months, and then code officers cite you for a public offense, and you have to move them on again. But they don't get off the street. And I would suggest that as part of this 10-year plan, some major address should be included. And I don't think the city needs to spend a lot of money on that, because this needs to be resolved amongst the folks already working agencies to help the homeless. And perhaps this could be one of those wonderful Clinton School student projects about which we've heard so much, where they research the heck out of things. They find grant possibilities. They put together these enormous binders of all the details that enables the agency to go get a massive grant. I'm referring here to an Our House experience I know about. and then you begin to provide for 500. And maybe in the meantime, we do something we've heard about. You have a safe tent encampment where the city spends a little money to put them in a safe place. And like we have for tornado refugees, a mess tent and a portable trailer with showers and bathrooms. But they're safe. They're not going to be robbed. They're not going to be raped on the hillside. Or another safe encampment for people who are living in their cars. And we know the school district does a great job of pulling people into the schools, even if they're living in the family car. So that suggests that we would have small encampments across the schools. We're not talking about some massive thing that's going to scare the heck out of people. But we've got places that we could potentially do this and have the security that everybody's concerned about. And of course, all these folks would be going right by the social worker's desk on the way in and out the gate. But something like that might be a massive, we know these people need to be cared for, so the city leads by asking all of the boards of all of these agencies. I'm not asking these overworked executive directors to do diddly squat. I'm saying go past them to the presidents of all these boards and convene them and sit them down with Clinton School Students for Staff and see where we can end up. And I'm sorry, shut up.
Well, I certainly have some reactions to some of the things I've heard. I do think on our code enforcement, we're going to work smarter with what we have. Do we really need to inspect every rental unit, the brand new ones? Or do we
Oh,
really,
no,
or
we
do
don't.
we need to target those that are troubled? So we can be smarter about that. And so
The new ones are excluded, dear.
I mean, even the ones that we say, I'm not talking about the ones that are brand new. I'm even talking about the ones that have a little seasoning on it. Do we need to target everything, or just the ones that are really are the ones that have been cited as issues? So we can certainly be smarter about that. We do know that when it comes to the working homeless, we probably have the best model in the whole country, and that's our house. They do a fantastic job with the working homeless. That's on this end of the spectrum. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have homeless, and I'm not a homeless expert. I'll leave that to people like Carol Miles, who can talk about that. But we do have people, I don't care if you put together a shelter, they don't want to live in a shelter.
That's true. Some of them never would come in no matter what.
So, I mean, that's something that I don't think we're ever going to be able to address and solve the issue of homelessness, because there are some individuals that are on this end of the spectrum that I don't want to live in a shelter. I don't want to abide by the rules. I want to live outside. That's what I prefer. And so we sometimes have, differences of opinion with some of our homeless providers that want to give out tents, and so people can pitch their tent inside the city. It's tough, you guys, because I have neighborhoods in Ward 1 that said, Director Miller, we don't mind doing our part, but why do we have to deal with the homelessness? Why is it all in our neighborhoods? It is a tough situation, and we try to be mindful of that. I liken it to a water balloon. When you squeeze it, you'll squeeze it and get people out somewhere, but they're going to go somewhere else. And so we just have to be realistic about the homeless situation. And certainly the neighborhoods that I have in Ward 1, they say, look, we don't mind doing our share. And certainly where the micro village is, there is a neighborhood there. There's a Goodwill neighborhood there, and I worked with them a lot about that. But there was some strong opinions about, about that shelter, about that project being in their neighborhood. And so It's all the not in my neighbor, it's all the NIMBY stuff that we all are familiar with. Everybody wants to do something about homelessness, but again, there are different ways to address that. And I feel, I feel pretty strongly about trying to do something about homelessness and certainly affordable housing. Affordable housing has to be certainly more of a partnership than certainly the public government taking that on by itself. We have to incentivize developers and our community development corporations. The university district is doing a great job as they're targeting the areas of Midtown and Oak Forest to try to bring about 50 houses, affordable houses, here in the next few years. There are some things that we're doing. Are we doing enough?
University district.
The University District Community Development Corporation under the leadership of Barrett Allen.
Where is that? What is that area?
There are a bunch of there are a bunch of empty lots around Midtown, around the Oak Forest area that they're targeted. They're building affordable housing. Certainly in the area that we're addressing over on Bussey, that the city is building affordable housing. We can't do it by ourselves. We need private-public partnerships to address these public
Forest
lots.
Hills is where their
Forest
part.
Hills is not in Ward 1. That's, well, when
Kathy
you talk about-
has us, but we never see her.
Oh, so there are some initiatives that are going on, and we certainly support what the county's doing. But I'm just going to say this.
Not this one.
I don't know how many homeless people want to live in the county. Homeless people want to be downtown, you guys. That's where everybody is. That's where they want to be. So if you think people are going to say, oh, here's some housing out in the county and everybody wants to live there, I'm not sure homeless people want to live in the county. They want to live in the city or where they can have access to the public, where they can panhandle, where they do have other resources. And so we certainly have to take a look at that. Jericho Way does a tremendous job with what they have, and we're working with them. But we certainly have other homeless providers that we have differences of opinion with, and when they want to give out tents and we don't want to have them giving out tents, they get mad at us and they're going to talk about us. But again, when you get a tent, it's fine, but let them pitch a tent in your backyard or on your street. And then you're going to start calling your directors about that. I guarantee you will. And there has to be a balance, you guys, and I've experienced it, certainly in Ward 1, where we have a business who would say, hey, Director Miller, we don't mind this tent pitched on right outside our property. We don't mind it at all. Well, you may not mind it. You don't live here. That's where your business is. But the people that live across the street mind it. So we've got to have it. I've heard it all, you guys, and I have dealt with businesses who will say we don't mind that. But you don't speak for the whole neighborhood. We got people who live here. You just work here. And when you get up and leave, you feel good because you let somebody pitch a tent next to your business or around your business. But you've gone home. We got people who live on that street who don't want to deal with that. And so there's a balance, you guys. It's a tough situation. I think if we had a solution for it, everybody would look at Little Rock and say, man, we need to model that. And I can tell you this. Now, sometimes I'm not a good politician because I talk too much. I don't think a politician learns anything when they talk a lot, quite frankly. I only learn stuff when I listen and I read. I don't learn anything when I talk. But I can tell you, it's been my experience that we want to do a good job. And man, we do a good job, and then Little Rock's great for the homeless. Oh man, let's send our homeless population to Little Rock. Man, they're doing a great job of that. So communities will say, well, man, Go to Little Rock. Let me buy you a bus ticket, a one-way bus ticket to Little Rock. So, because they are a great city when it comes to addressing homelessness. So there's a balance, because the better job we do, the more aggressive we are with trying to deal with this, the more homeless population we're going to get. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I think it's true. People will come to our city when they think, or other city officials will say, man, we don't want you in our city, but Little Rock wants you because they're providing all these services. Let me buy you a ticket and send you to Little Rock. That is not urban myth.
No, but if I may just make one little point, and then he'll have his. When you go very far down that road, and there's some overtones in it, I think, in the way that you were expressing what's very true, attitudes that we've seen in particularly Ward 1. It's rest on the notion these are folks that we're always going to be giving to, that are always going to be taking resources. And I think that we need to shift the focus to the fact that, just as you said, some will never want to get off the streets. There's plenty who are just that one paycheck away from disaster. They need the helping hand to get back into normal house, a normal job, normal living, normal tax paying. And so maybe what we should be thinking about, and that's even with, if we're successful, they're going to come in from all over, is that we have prospects to add positive, productive citizens to our population base. And what's one of the things we're talking about? It's redeveloping all our vacant lots and houses, particularly in Ward 1. And there is a way, I think, to find that to be included in the policies. You can't just stop with, they're just going to suck us dry. No, not all of them will do that.
I agree.
And there's limits to what we can do. And let's face it, when you get the bottom of that attitude, it is let them go die in the gutter, and then we will pick them up and take them to the dump. And nobody really wants to say that, and nobody really wants that to be policy. And that really isn't something that most folks would ever agree to do by turning a blind eye. Right? I can tell from the reaction in the room. I went so extreme that everyone was horrified. Yes. But let's keep in mind, you talk about balance, that's a balance to keep in mind. And so let's be working harder at recognizing categories and thinking about how they can be turned into productive assets. And I'm going to shut up
I
about
could
that.
give
You
you
had a comment.
example after example after example that we're working on and nobody knows about it because we're doing it on our own. We're putting in, I'm not going to say what those are, but it's a big deal that you'll start seeing in Forest Hills because we're doing it by coming together, because most of the people that live in Forest Hills own their homes and have been living there for a long time, like 38 years in my case. And we have cleaned up that neighborhood remarkably. If you just want to come over and take a look, you might see it that's coming around.
Okay, I'll certainly take you up on that.
And I will give you a tour.
I'd love to do that.
And so, I mean, we take care of our business, the other neighborhoods need to take care of their business, and then we can share what we know about what is positive and what is not positive.
Where is this?
Forest Hills.
Forest Hills.
Where is
This
it?
is Ron Muse.
Right there.
Take a picture of the sign-in sheet and you'll have contact information.
I'll do that.
How about friends?
Okay.
Right there.
We're in the middle of it essentially right here.
What street? What street?
I can tell you exactly. It's Pine and Cedar, all the way past Jonesboro, from 12th Street to the freeway, all the way.
And
300 houses.
Part in Ward 1 and part in what Ward?
3.
No, we're not.
Ward 3 under the new revision. Blake had a comment?
Yes, so I had a few. My first, I would say, encouraging all of us, and this would be in response to some of what you said, Dr. Miller, which is that notion about people don't want to be housed and want to live on the street is an overblown myth, and it's something that we have a responsibility in this room,
Can
especially
you
our
speak up a
public.
little bit?
The idea that people don't want housing and shelter and would rather live on the street is an overblown myth, and it's something that we all have responsibility in this room to work against and to counter when that's spoken about, especially our public figures, including those who know me, like I'm running for office.
So let me ask you this, as we get into debate, you don't think there's a percentage of people that want to live in the street? You think everybody wants to live in the shelter? I'm just asking, I don't want to be argumentative.
Yeah, everybody
wants to live in the shelter.
Everybody wants
That's
to
your
be,
position.
Everybody wants to be sheltered.
Okay.
Everybody wants survival and safety. That is a core human need that everybody seeks. And the question that we have to ask people is, what do you need? Why would you choose to live on the street versus a house? Why would you do what? And there's a reason behind that. And it's part of what you said, Dr. Miller, which is they don't have access to resources. Why do they want to live downtown? Maybe it's because that's where resources are. That's where they can get transportation. That's where the transit center is. That's where they can get access to other things. It is resources so that they can survive. And that's the question we need to frame our questioning around and our policy around, is how do we meet people's needs? And remember, at the core, people are seeking shelter and safety. So that's one thing. The second thing I would say is thinking about what is realistic, and it's that zero homelessness goals have been set by different cities and have been achieved. Those are realistic.
What cities, or can you tell me, have zero homelessness?
So
give me some examples of cities so we can, as
yeah.
a city, can go visit them.
So I lived in Milwaukee for a few years. Milwaukee set zero homelessness goals. They set them at different stages. They set zero veteran homelessness goals, and they met them. They set zero family homelessness goals, and they met it.
So Milwaukee doesn't have any homeless?
Let me finish.
Okay.
They got this close. They were in the teens when it came to people who were unsheltered, so people who were living on the street. Now, granted, homelessness is a big spectrum. So there are folks who are unsheltered, there are folks that are sheltered. Milwaukee still had folks who were sheltered homeless. But as far as unsheltered homeless, they were in the teens of people who were living on the streets and unsheltered. And now that has gone up because of, not because people moving there because they were successful, but because of the rising cost of living and people being forced out of their homes. Now they still have the model set up to where they're able to address homelessness. And a lot of that is what we were talking about before, which is collaboration. Bringing together, having strategic investments, and bringing together the groups, the nonprofits, the agencies that are invested in housing and homelessness, and really doing something about this, and committing to those different zero homelessness goals, and breaking down the barriers that are not allowing people to have the resources they're seeking. So that is a realistic goal. And I want to change our framing that it is possible. And then the third point, which is back to what I said about Milwaukee and how they did it, is bringing folks together. Bringing nonprofits and agencies, advocates together. And that is what we need here. And yes, we have some very strong programs. I worked at our house. I love what our house does. I've also worked side by side with the band. This is something that we can do, even with, I'll admit, we have a lot of strong personalities. And across all of our agencies and across all of our people. And sometimes it's going to be hard to bring those people together, especially when they have different values. But they have a shared vision for people to be housed. And so we can do that. People have the skills to do that kind of coalition building and that work. And I think, coming back to why we're here, which is talk about the sales tax, which I think if we're going to invest in homelessness and affordable housing and a strategy around this, I think we need to invest in that kind of coalition building, which is also what we talked about when it came to food districts. Does the city have the skills and the capacity to the staffing capacity to do that leadership. Yes, we're hoping to have a chief homelessness officer to be able to address some of this, but one person is not going to be able to do that kind of work alone to pull all these people together. There needs to be somebody that has those skills and can do that. And so I think that investment is really important across homelessness and housing, food deserts, things like that. So just reframings on what is possible, reframings on some myth busting, and also what investments we might need to really leverage the resources we already have in the community.
And I think
Point of information, and then we need to hear from Kevin, and then we'll hear from Rick. We do now have a chief homeless officer employed by the city of Little Rock. I don't think there's been an announcement. That person is Matthew DeSalvo, who previously was employed as executive director of the local chapter of the Salvation Army. He and I have spoken about this, and basically Blake is singing his song, not the least of which is, and this is my additional amen, one person needs a whole lot more resources than he's getting right now. So Director Virgil Miller, please do what you can to foster stronger abilities, stronger support. Let me just shut up about that. Kevin Howard had something to say.
Yeah, now Blake, I appreciate your passion for homelessness, and definitely we encourage you to work with Matthew. We do have an organization called Catch that works with nonprofit organizations all throughout the city. And so we received the COC planning grant at the city of Little Rock, and so that goes into planning. Also, we receive ESG funds that goes to all the COC members, our house, BCD, a lot of the organizations around the city of Little Rock that work with homeless individuals and unsheltered individuals. And then we have a day resource center in Carrollstown. We can discuss some other things that they do too as well. But we do engage with individuals out on the street constantly, every day. Now, one of the things that you said that I do agree on, one of the things I know the mayor is trying to get to is functional zero. But one of the things that you said we do need more resources. I've been singing this song since I became a director in 2019. I went on the news, I said it, when individuals was unsheltered on the Capitol steps, around Capitol Street, and Virgil would call and say, hey, Kevin, we need, because he worked at Harvest, and he would say, hey, we got individuals out here sleeping on businesses that were not open during that time period due to COVID. And so we had to find places for them to go. So we do have engagement specialists that go out, talk to these individuals on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes we may talk to 100 in a week. And so we do ask them, do you need certain resources? We try to meet them where they are. Now, some individuals, the chronic homeless, they don't want to go anywhere. We figured that out. Now, some have mental issues, and so that has to be addressed. So right now, we're putting a homeless response team together that can address those mental issues. We have social workers with the police department. We're working with Center Youth and Families. They have mental workers that can deal with the mental issues. Matthew's going to be on their team. We have people, other people that are around the nonprofit organizations that are
Social workers.
Yeah, social workers is what I said.
That was my idea.
Well, the police department has social workers that work with them. We do.
I worked with them when they started that program.
Yeah.
And
so,
through the university.
And we need more.
We do.
Yeah, because they're not on nights and weekends.
Exactly.
That was the point I just told Chief Hilton yesterday.
Yeah, and we're the
It
only
works.
ones that get called
It's
on nights and weekends. So we house a lot of individuals. Like last year, I would say we housed over 300 or 400 individuals in hotels. They came in, and they didn't have a place to go. And one of the things when you're applying for funds through the ESG program, you have to go into a hotel for so many nights. Then we can place you into permanent housing. So it's a process that we have to go through. One of the things that help us out with the micro-home village, we can house up to 220 individuals at one time. And we do have emergency shelter that we can bring people in off the street, shelter them, and then provide them with a case manager that can provide access to them to go into the micro-home village or provide them permanent housing somewhere else. Now, we have affordable housing shortage. And one of the issues that we had during COVID was we had a lot of individuals that were evicted. So then they became homeless. We had $75 million that went back to the federal government that came to the state through the Treasury Rental Assistance Program. And so a lot of these individuals went on the street. And also we do have individuals that are bused here to the city of Little Rock. We just sent somebody back to Fort Smith last week. They got down to Little Rock because they said Little Rock could provide services to them better than any other city in the state. And so they came here, went and checked into the mental hospital, got services. I don't think they were completely cleared mentally of what they, really needed. And so they didn't have a place to go, so they was put out on the street. We engaged with those individuals, we got them assistance, and then we were able to send them back. We asked them, where do you want to go? They said Fort Smith. So we were able to ship them back to Fort Smith. But those funds are limited, and we don't have enough of those funds. Some of that money that you see in other homeless, we'll tap into that too as well. We've seen something happen in other cities, such as a safe place for individuals to go. It may be for a 2-month period, somewhere off the beaten path. We've been trying to find places around the city that would not be an eyesore to residents. So when they pass by, you see this encampment area where you got tents and everything like that. Because a lot of things that has to happen in that situation, you have to have police security, you have to have bath, you have sanitation, you have
You
maintenance
sure
of the
do.
facilities.
It's just like a refugee from a war zone.
Exactly. So you have to have those things. So it costs money to do that. And then you want to keep it in a confined area where it's not an issue for residents when they come by. But we do have to do something different. I think we're in the process of doing it. We have a chief homeless officer. We've been meeting with a lot of nonprofit organizations, Rock Region Metro, just a lot of different organizations to try to bring that together. I would welcome you to come to the Catch meeting. They will have one, I believe, next Friday. And you can go in and see. It's a public meeting. They meet once a month. So.
And they meet in this building, do they not?
Correct. That's correct. That's correct. And so we're always asking for individuals that are willing to have the passion to assist with some of the things we're doing. But one of the things that I did ask in the 2024 budget was to have more engagement specialists because it's needed. I'm thinking that we may be able to get that in as an amendment in June, but it's all going to depend on how things go as far as with the city of Little Rock and revenue budgets and those type of things. Director Miller, he's been very, very supportive in what we're trying to do. I talk to him on a regular basis about things that happen. He'll give me a call, say, hey, Kevin, what's going on with this? And he'll tell you a lot of times we're already on top of it. But some of the laws that we have when we engage, if it's a property and individuals, it's unsafe and vacant, we've already boarded up and they got into the property, we can't get them out. The police can't come and get them out. They have to the owner has to come and verify the lease and all that type of thing, so it gets into a legal aspect that goes beyond code enforcement. My code enforcement.
So squatters in vacant houses prove to be a real problem.
Correct. And so we don't have a law on the books right now that you can just go get them out of the house unless the owner approves it and they have a lease. If not, you have to go to small claims court and you have to get eviction notice and all those type of things to get them out.
Those supreme property rights do end up with these things that roll along and roll along. Let me ask you right quick, and then we'll get to Rick's comment. With all of the work that your staff has been engaged in, particularly when you talk about going out to the folks who are living on the street, are we incorrect in saying there are folks who get returned to productivity to normal life?
Yes, we do. We last year, I want to say we put 50 people in permanent housing last year that were transitioning from home unsheltered to getting to permanent housing. So that was really, really good for us. One of the things we did the year before, I think we did over 100, and we had the EHB voucher. That was the emergency housing voucher. And so what we need now is to have that emergency housing voucher back in place by the federal government. They took that away. I think MHA had 87 vouchers, and we used the majority of those vouchers. And they gave nonprofit organizations such as Our House, DePaul USA, the City of Little Rock, an opportunity to go in and get those vouchers. Once we worked with an individual that was unsheltered and we knew that they were ready to go into permanent housing from transitional, we could provide them with permanent housing. A lot of times,
So maybe we need to hear more publicity about that part of it, so nobody thinks they're hanging on the public sleeve forever and ever. I'm in. Rick.
I'll just be quick. I think, and Kevin, you answered some of what I was going to address. I think Blake's comment about the targeted intervention by population is an interesting thing, so veterans or families, and maybe if y'all get some of those engagement specialists, your strategy would have people that can work with those. I imagine veterans have maybe more mental health issues versus a family that's just, it's a financial thing. So I'd never heard that before, and that was an interesting way to go about it.
In some cities, I've been in St. Louis, and they have a veteran housing organization. I want to say it's VA Communities, and they have their own housing for veterans. The VA, we have talked to them. I've been on, did a presentation in front of them about the microhome village. So we are currently working with them on some things like that. So I know they did it in Jonesboro. They did a small section for veterans. But one thing, working with veterans, they do have something that a lot of individuals do not have. They can receive 100% financing to purchase a home. And so once you get them to a certain point, they can tap into that. But I do see.
But then they have to have a job because they're paying a house mortgage.
Well, they get disabilities and all that type of stuff, so they have to pay their mortgage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good to have that clear. Denise?
To what extent do you see people who become sheltered, who transition to shelters, to what extent do you see them return to unsheltered, and what resources do you provide, are you able to provide for the follow-on?
Yes, so usually the case management services, once they get to a certain point in their housing, they'll continue to check with them. And I think, Karen, how long did y'all? For a year. For a year. And so they'll check with them for a year to make sure that they can still house. Now, some of the people that we did house that received, and we received, the city of the Rock, we tapped into the state's ESG for about $300,000, and it's not enough. It's not enough money. When we tap into the ESG grant, that's Emergency Solutions Grant. I'm sorry, I deal with a lot of acronyms. CDBG home.
Yes, the hazards of professional.
So once we tap into it, we only provide 3 to 6 months of housing assistance for them. So those individuals that receive that, and that's why I said the emergency housing voucher is so important, because you can turn it into a Section 8 voucher that continue on for the rest, as long as they stay in the house, as long as they don't have any issues or anything like that. But one of the ladies that we put into Madison Heights, she was there for 6 months, and after 6 months, she kept paying rent. So she ended up going back. She ended up calling us, said, "Hey, I got to go back to the street because I don't have." And then she had 2 kids, so we had to find another place to stay. We had to work with someone to provide a voucher for her, which would be the Public Housing Authority. It's key, and I told Ms. Wells that we work with our Public Housing Authority. I know we have some issues with MHA, but it's every city.
Yes, Metropolitan is rebuilding.
Yes, but every city that you deal with, it's a major city, you know, Arlington, Fort Worth, Dallas, they work with their Public Housing Authority to house a lot of English, because they're the creation of affordable housing projects. So the more affordable housing projects that they can create, and right now, MHA had created an affordable housing project probably in the last 10 to 15 years. So if you don't have those creating, you don't get the people off the street, because you have the major developers that develop housing. It's a mixed use, but you're going to have a certain income limit. So they only going to take maybe 10 people, then after that it's closed out. The rest of it is going to be market rate. And so that's what we're trying to create. And I told Ms. Wells that a part of to make it work, as far as the $10 million, we would have to work in a private-public partnership with a developer to maybe give us some seed money, give us some equity in the land, and maybe build, you know, some mixed units. Maybe have commercial down below where they have a grocery store, because we do have food deserts in these areas, and then create housing on the 3 other levels, and that would give us more units. But we would have to do that all over the city, and maybe more downtown in Director Miller's ward, because we have so many individuals that are unsheltered, and so we would have to do that. And then other things that would feed into from the microhome village to maybe what the new developer does, and we can take that 10 million. But we always need more money. I can Director Miller tell you that I can ask for that every day.
Every department of the city needs more money.
Well, now, let me just circle back to the fact that we had this map from the master plan showing all of the city-owned properties and government properties down in the grid where they want more population. So, have you had a chance to look at that map?
I did.
And
I
to
was-
ponder which one you'd like to do one of these partnerships on top of?
I did, and I was a part of the master plan too as well, and I gave my input as far as affordable housing and what's needed and the shortage we have in the city of Little Rock. And I know one of the things they were talking about as far as the number of parking decks we have in parking lots, empty parking lots
Yes.
around the city. And so that would be access for a developer to come in, maybe we put out an RFP, provide this land as equity and let them come in and develop, even, that's viable what you said about renting for
$1 a year for 10 years and then pay off?
That's viable. So those are the type of things that we need to discuss. We are working with Rock Region Metro. They're looking to do something different with the transit center that we have down there with buses go through, possibly having some housing in that area right there so that'll provide additional housing to there so as well.
Kevin, I had a quick
Yes, sir.
question, because you brought up Madison Heights. Do we have new and better management over there now? Because we had some horrible management over there.
Yeah, I think they're working on that. I think one of the things that they're doing now, they're trying to put in place, they would get ready to advertise, trying to have a new executive director. So once I think they get that in place, then they'll
We
have
need a
some stability.
really good one.
Yeah. That would be the key. A strong executive director that can come in and create affordable housing and get the Section 8 voucher program back up and running. And then I think they shortened the list, but I think that would be the key. But if we can get the emergency houses back to MHA, and then they can provide it to the nonprofit organizations. That way, they can have some sustainability when these individuals move into these houses.
Did you say there was a revision of the title of the program? You started out talking emergency housing voucher, and then I think you said ESM?
ESG, Emergency Solutions Grant.
ESG, and what does that stand for?
It's Emergency Solutions Grant. It's
Solutions Grant.
Yeah, it's two
Okay.
different. It's two different grants. It's two different things. Emergency housing voucher was what came along when COVID hit. So that was one of the things that the federal government gave to the PHAs, so they could provide more emergency housing vouchers. And then the Emergency Solutions Grant, it does several different things. It has several different components. It does emergency outreach. It has rapid rehousing, homeless prevention. So if a person was becoming homeless, and you saw them on the street, you can provide homeless prevention. Rapid rehousing is somebody that is about to be evicted and needs to be rehoused. And I know some of the nonprofit organizations that are working with homeless individuals, they tap into ESG quite often. And so they're able to provide vouchers. And some of it has a mental health piece to it too as well. They have other grants that the COC has that provide services to the mental health organizations around the city of Little Rock. So.
Yeah, let me also say that there's been a shrinking of those type of funds from the federal government.
That's correct.
I'm sure Kevin can tell you how much money we used to receive in our community development block grant funds and our ESG funds and our HOPA funds. I mean, those funds are under constant attack federally, and those budgets have been shrinking. And so cities don't receive as much in the resources that they used to. And certainly that has an effect on what you can do and what the city can do and what we can do. Because, again, we get less money than we used to get. And certainly we are very hopeful, as Kevin is saying, that our partnership with our housing, our local housing authority is going to be strengthened. We think it's going to pay some immediate dividends.
And let me just circle back to something that we have been looking at, and that is because we know these old sources and these old long-standing allocations are going down and down and down, it's time for city leadership to go create the kind of new effort that I was just tossing out earlier, and that was just on the homeless issue. You go ask your existing involved community to go out after that category of foundation and grant. source. They're out there. We have not been really pursuing that. We have not been pursuing the large scale. These things come in, call it small, medium, and large, to be crude about it. And so across the nation, I think Little Rock is coming in on the small category of funding and numbers. But if you just treated this 500 or the 700, whatever number you wanted to call it, as the target goal that would take you up to the next level. And I'm thinking here about next level pursuit of research and then what grant funding would be when you have this collaboration amongst all of the agencies, not only CATCH, but we know there are religious groups that scorn public money that are beyond that membership list. But we would hopefully bring them into this discussion. And you start with what everybody wants to do anyway. If it adds up to 700, my golly, we now have the beginnings of a real pursuit. But they're not going to get it fighting over the same patrons here in the city. They're going to have to go out national. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much here, but it seems to me it's a natural. And one of the things that we've benefited by, it's going to be our June 8th next month's meeting, is there is an Arkansas Civic Health Index report that has come from, once again, the Clinton School of Service and the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute and the Arkansas Community Foundation, all of which would be engaged in what we just talked about, pursuing the next level of the private partnerships across the nation. They want to build community, and they want to come offer us a discussion, which we will have next month at 10 o'clock here, and they will bring their own facilitators to lead us in the particulars of their discussion. And we have posted their recommendations, which involve several things. I can send it back around again for folks. But I think that it continues the very important part of this discussion. Now, we aren't by ourselves going to be conducting this great new next level thing. But I think some of this can be brought back to our home communities, all of which could stand to be bolstered, supported, and expanded, and drawing more people in to tables like this. And those people are going to be just as interested in that next level attention to something that is, quite honestly, a neighborhood nuisance. It's a nuisance to have people all around you on the streets and homeless and panhandling and maybe being a little scary after dark. But we don't need to treat them as criminals, and we don't need to treat them as hopeless. And I repeat, let's see if we can't start treating them as productive assets that we just need to bring into asset category. I'm sorry. That's the prediction for the June 8th meeting. Come back here for that and this. I think we've gone over all our list here except maybe Public Works, which is, my guess is we're missing the basics. That doesn't look like very much money on line item 32. Public infrastructure total, $8 million a year among 7 wards.
80 million.
No, I'm looking at the annual, darling.
Oh, okay.
That's not much money a year amongst the 7 wards, and then you do this other stuff.
Well, you do know we have village that is dedicated totally towards
The 3 mil
streets
road
and-
tax, yes, we do.
So we do have that, and that proves what, 176 million? So on top of that, but that's still not enough. I can say that.
Yeah, because John, he'll give the total what it takes him to do a street as far as resurface.
A 1 block bill is up over what, 2 million now?
Yeah, I think it's like, it used to be, went from 300,000 10 years ago to like $2 million.
1 block.
Yeah. So you look at 1 block of completely brought up to modern standards, and you know, you're looking at a $2 million bill.
Complete street.
I mean, you know, that's one reason why we had such screaming in the wintertime on the pothole brigade. Frankly, if they had a line item on here for pothole brigade, I think that Public Works would get a whole lot of support. And I'm not necessarily supporting this tax, but I have to recognize the political appeal of that. But that's just not, yes, Blake.
Oh, I just have one question on this figure. You know, that pointed out it increasing over 10 years that much. Like, has that kind of exponential increase in cost been factored into this projection of what we are able to pay for?
Over the next 10 years?
Over the next 10 years, right?
I think what John was trying to say is we need the tax, because without the tax, we wouldn't be able to do as many roads. They did factor that in when they were doing the bonds that just passed recently, so they do have money. And then you gotta remember, they get also additional amount of money too as well. They don't get any really general fund money, but they get some other money that comes in so they can do street repair and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, there's been a variety of repeating bond issue financing that the voters have done. So, yeah, there's multiple financing for public infrastructure, but also always a general revenue sales tax line item for this. I don't think we've ever had a sales tax without a public infrastructure component.
Not that I can remember.
And so it's a fair question. Are they expecting to get very much for it with the cost increases we're looking at these days? Do you know what the targeted community development infrastructure is? Line 29, 5 million at 500,000 a year. You know what that is, Kevin?
Address that because, of course, that came about before I got on the board for 4 different wards.
Yeah, it was 4 different wards. And we have a map for the targeted community development initiative that we have. I think the key thing on that, it was never fully funded. They did try to fund it initially with $1 billion, but it addresses affordable housing, infrastructure issues in those wards. Also, it was one other thing. I was on the committee.
There's one in Hillcrest, I think.
Yeah.
Partial up there.
Well, now, okay, I'm sorry. The 28, the line before it, the strategic infrastructure, is that not, aside from the $1 million per ward, you've got recognition of major streets and thoroughfares that cross over ward to ward to ward to ward, and they would need similarly major funding for a project. And so they treated it as citywide line item and then wards line item. But the targeted community development, I'm sorry, I'm still not understanding what that buys us.
Yeah, I can give you the information. I can send you the information.
Okay, well, send me a little memo that I can pass around.
Yeah, I can send you.
And it's John Barrett corridor, 12th Street corridor,
John Barrett.
south end.
Yeah,
and
you
south
got
end.
it pulled up.
Yeah.
That's it. Because the map is on our website too as well. I think one of the things that John was trying to address too is some of the drainage issues that they was having around the city and some of the residential properties. So some of that money on 28 is coming out of there for the drainage. And then I think the street resurfaces is on number 30.
Yes, it is.
Kevin, there's a big problem with standing water where there's supposed to be a place for the water to go. And the people who were hired to do that did not do that. It's been years ago. So if it rains, you have to tippy-toe if you're walking on a sidewalk.
Is it making standing water in the street?
Yeah.
Well,
In several different
gosh,
places.
use your handy dandy Little Rock 311 app.
Well,
Tell
I
them to
know
go
they
after
do.
that.
Hopefully it's something else.
But I think they're trying to address some of that.
And we had a question earlier, what is 31, sustainable infrastructure?
I think that's one of the new line items. Probably want to have John Honeywell eventually come and talk about that. Or when you go to one of the meetings, he'll address it at that point. Because I want to say we got 3 meetings coming up this week. Is it 2 meetings or 3 meetings? 3. Yeah. And you can ask him that during the meeting.
Okay.
Because that's a new line item.
I take it you're not jumping in to tell us what it is.
I'll try to stay in my lane on that. Because I really don't know.
John
It is
Honeywell.
new.
Can we talk about number 17, the senior center?
Oh, yes, I did get information about that.
There's gonna be a pool, which we know that is not going to happen.
Oh,
Well,
Exercise thing, but it's not a swimming pool, is my understanding.
Number 17, the senior center in West 12. I spoke with a parks official yesterday. They're going to put in an indoor pool, and beyond whatever scheduled program hours they're operating, it will be open to the public.
I don't think it's a full-size pool, at least.
well.
That's what we were
Oh,
told.
so the question is,
Last
how
time-
big it is?
Yeah, last time Age Friendly Little Rock Commission got a report, it was a therapeutic pool.
I'm sorry, keep talking because it's not clear to me. Are we talking about a tiny one or a lane-only one, or?
A therapy pool, so it's smaller, it's not necessarily for, like laps swimming. At least that was the last time we heard from the Age Friendly Little Rock Commission. But it may be different, because I don't think we got word of this being in the sales tax proposal, so it could be different. We
We're
don't
also
know.
building pickleball courts too, and were as part of this funding for the senior center, even though you have reps from the tennis courts right next to the senior center, which has pickleball courts. So.
I get it, they need more pickleball,
Not against
They know
pickleball.
but I do not know that.
You've got a whole huge tennis complex there that at various times when I've been there is totally empty and maybe has 2 or 3 tennis courts. And I used to play tennis for 30 years, so I do know how it could be used for pickleball courts on part of it.
It's not impossible, that's what they're planning.
No, they're not going to use reps and then tennis courts and convert them. They're going to build on the parking lot by the center, the pickleball courts. That was the plan.
I don't know a thing about pickleball.
They're small.
Are they
tennis-
smaller than a tennis court?
Yes.
Then why don't you just put some lines down there and play the one or the other on the same piece of asphalt?
They can do that.
That would be logical, but there is logic to this plan.
Oh, that issue again. Okay. Well, let me ask about the pool size of the senior center. Thank you. I had not known. We were pondering what particular kind of pool to put in there.
What you think of as a pool, and what we were told
Indoor
is
pool.
a therapy pool, not a lap pool, or get in there and do.
Well, what size is a therapy pool? I guess it's my question.
Not as big as a lap, not as big as the pool that was at Beth's Chisholm, that was taken over. Originally, the reason for creating the age-friendly commission was to address the lack of a pool or wanting to convert the Beth's Chisholm pool to a city pool rather than having a private nonprofit take over the pool. So now
Okay.
they put this little pool down in the center that is not a pool like you and I think of pools. It's a
Well, it's
therapy.
interesting that the parks official was very quick to assure me that this would be open to the public outside of program schedule hours, because that suggests to me a rather larger, call it standard pool. I'm not sure I know what that is, but certainly bigger than what a therapy pool image comes up in my head to be.
Exactly.
So I will find out about that. Thank you, I can research
Like a
that.
glorified hot tub,
Well, that's good to have them too, I'll grant you that.
like that.
Okay, 23. I did find out a couple of things on the community center list. Somebody had wanted to know which community centers were going to be getting something and what was that. And the answer is, that is a combination of overall renovations and freshening of the buildings at East Little Rock Center, Southwest Center, Stevens Center, and Dunbar Center.
yes.
So that's what line 23 addresses.
And let me encourage you to certainly do what Kathy's doing. Our meeting's coming up on the 16th. Call some of the department directors before the meeting Get your questions lined up, and maybe even addressed, so that when you come to the meeting and you can speak from that standpoint. So some of these people you've already talked to. So don't wait for the meeting on the 16th, because those meetings last about an hour. And when that hour hits, people will be trying to get out of there.
That's the Dunbar, right?
Yeah,
That's the Dunbar
That's
one.
the Dunbar. If you want to come to Ward 1, there's several other meetings. But what I'm suggesting is, be like Kathy. Call the city, try to get some answers to your questions prior to the meeting, so that when you come to the meeting, you can talk about that from that standpoint. If you agree with it, if you don't agree with it, but you're gonna be competing with a bunch of other people that's gonna have their hands raised.
Already done.
Well, please do email me your questions, because as a retiree, I am free to call these folks during their business hours and to be around for callbacks. I'm also emailing a lot of these questions to these folks in hopes that I get a written memo back that I can circulate on our list. And the other thing that I really recommend that he didn't get as far as is come to the meeting on the 16th with your own one-page statement. I am name, address, phone number. I want to say this about the proposed 24 tail sacks list, and leave it with them, because there's no substitute for making clear your own viewpoint and not leaving them to remember it or to make notes on what you said, or even to go through a recording if they make one. Are these going to be, by the way, recorded and then posted on the cable channel or somewhere?
We will certainly suggest that if it's not done already. Again, these meetings last an hour, and I like to say, I liken it to a half-hour show on television. It's not a half hour. Once you factor in the commercials, you're not going to get a half hour. So once you factor in the presentations from the mayor and other directors, you're not going to have an hour.
Yeah, your talk time is really going to be shut down.
It's really going to be lessened. So the way to really get in depth, and that's certainly what I try to do at board meetings on Tuesdays. We got 10 directors. If everybody asks questions, it's going to take up a lot of time. I try to ask my questions after Tuesday and before Tuesday. And of course, when you start asking questions and try to get details about how many feet this is, and what's the circumference of this, and what's the turn radius on that at a board meeting, it takes up a whole lot of time.
That's what you're doing at the agenda meetings if you're efficient.
I like to do them I like to do them during business hours. I like to pick up the phone and call directors prior to the Tuesday meetings. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Get your questions asked prior to the public hearing, because again, you're going to have you're going to have opening statements, you're going to have presentations, and then they're going to open it up for questions, and it's not going to be a whole lot of time. And then you have some citizens that are more passionate about questions and statements than others, and so that's even going to shrink up more time. So I just strongly encourage you to try to get your questions asked prior to those meetings, so that somebody can go in depth and they can talk to Kathy or something for 10, 15 minutes. They're not going to be able to talk 10, 15 minutes in an hour public sales tax hearing.
That is good advice. And it's also good to remember to submit it in writing, because these folks are trying to process an awful lot. And the best way to get yourself on their record is to give them the paper. I think we are coming to the close of this meeting. Once again, I encourage everyone to come back a month from now, June 8th at 10 a.m. in this room 104 at the Hinton Center at 12th and Pine. We're going to be talking about building community stronger in our own neighborhoods, thanks to facilitators from the Arkansas Civic Health Index Project of the Rockefeller Institute and the Clinton School of Service and the Arkansas Community Foundation. We stand adjourned, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Kathy,